Tower Defense Simulator is not exactly known for its logic. A lot of things in the game don't really make a lot of sense. Haven't thought of it much? Maybe I could bring up a few things. For example, hidden detection with the Ranger, balloons being able to fly, lead balloons being able to fly, Gladiator being able to hit flying enemies, and so much more. That just makes no sense whatsoever. So naturally, with all of these things that make no sense, I have decided today to talk about them and decide which one of them may be the most illogical thing. So here's how I'm going to be ranking these things. If it has an explanation, then it's logical. If it has somewhat of an explanation, then you know, it's a little bit more illogical. But if there's no way to describe it whatsoever, then it wins the title of the most illogical thing in Tower Defense Simulator. Let's begin with hidden detection. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You have these hidden enemies who are partially transparent, and then for some reason towers like the Maxed Commando or the Ranger that clearly have gear that should be capable of seeing the hiddens, but then isn't. And then take a look at, I don't know, the Accelerator for example, or a certain level of Gladiator that have no gear whatsoever, yet they do have hidden detection. Now at first it may seem like there's no possible way to explain this. I mean, why would you have high-tech gear not be able to see hiddens that, you know, towers without gear can easily see? But this is actually not so illogical, as we can give this one an explanation. And sure, the explanation might not make perfect sense, but at least it's an explanation. And that is that the towers simply just choose not to attack the hiddens. Now, of course, we don't have to analyze a Roblox game to like quantum levels and make it way too complicated, but let's just give this a fairly simple explanation and say that the towers just choose not to attack the hiddens. While this doesn't make much sense either, I mean, why would you have your own towers working for you, not attack the hiddens? It is still technically a reasonable explanation for why you have towers that can attack them and towers that can't. That doesn't even depend on their gear. If anything, what is less logical is the hiddens themselves. What are the hiddens made out of? It makes no sense, especially shadows. They're just transparent. Those are pretty hard to describe in and of itself, just their existence alone, let alone the fact that they're living and running along a path. That doesn't make much sense either. Is there perhaps an explanation we can give to these shadows? Well, that one's gonna have to be put on hold because that's pretty difficult to explain, if there's any explanation at all. Of course, there's more topics we have to cover as well, like for example, military bases being able to die to balloons. The balloons are floating quite high above the car, and then all of a sudden, the car mysteriously dies. This especially makes less sense when you have a Mark V as an example, which is a giant mech, who dies to a balloon that is just simply a balloon. Now, probably some reasonable explanation would be that the balloons are made out of something. Maybe they have something inside of them that triggers the military bases to explode. Really, what we're trying to do here is find some sort of explanation for what is deemed as illogical. And this is an example, maybe some sort of logic. There could be a bomb implanted inside of the military base or the mecha base, which is programmed to explode upon hitting a balloon. This sort of logic also applies to gladiators being able to hit balloons. Like, the sword is not even coming in contact with the balloons, and the balloons are popping. Okay, but then again, the real problem lies here within the enemy itself, which is the balloon. If you've ever seen the amount of balloon to person ratio that is required to carry someone up into the air, you'll notice you need a pretty big balloon if you want to fly. What we're seeing here doesn't make much sense. One balloon being able to hold up an enemy, which clearly seems to be pretty big for a balloon that size to carry it, doesn't make much sense, right? Well, the logical explanation here is that the balloon, the enemy itself of course, is hollow, meaning there's not really anything on the inside of it, causing it to weigh a lot less and the balloon being able to carry it. That doesn't sound very logical either, but you know, it'll pass off as a half explanation. Of course then, when the balloon lands, it is able to walk and still has a lot of health, leaving us to assume that it is not actually hollow on the inside. So we're left with another thing that is seemingly completely unexplainable here. But let's move on. You know, there's definitely more situations here to look at. As an example, this thing right here. Take the logic of a balloon as an example from earlier, and then make it even more logical. Not only do the same physics still apply with it killing the military or mecha bases, but it also is now made of lead, and it has to be filled in with something because, as you can see by its health, it is a pretty strong enemy, meaning it's not empty on the inside. So now that's 3 things that can't be explained, but we're not done yet. There's a lot of other things that you probably never even considered which make no sense. Take a look at this ace pilot right here. Notice anything strange? Probably not, but if you look at the speed a real plane is supposed to be going at, it's most certainly a lot higher than this plane is going at right now. And when you max out a plane, it also goes very slow compared to the speed of a real-life jet. A plane going that speed would certainly fall. Next thing that doesn't make any sense, that you probably never even paid attention to, is that when a boss stomps, there's no damage done to anything on the map whatsoever. Sure, it stuns the towers, but the floor that the boss stomps is completely fine. Not even a scratch. If you're thinking about a massive boss stomping the ground and then stunning every single tower on the map, you'd most certainly expect it to do some damage to the ground. But of course that doesn't happen, and we're not even done. The list continues with the next logic being these ghosts. Like, come on, ghosts aren't real. We all know that, at least in real life, so it would make no sense for it to be in this game either. Of course, because it is a game, that's the only reason they're there. We wouldn't want ghosts in real life. Neither would we want any of the other stuff from TDS in real life, but that's just another thing that doesn't make any sense. And another more reasonable but still unlogical thing is the military base drivers just being completely fine with sitting down in a car and ramming themselves into enemies and dying over and over. That doesn't sound like something anyone would do, but then again, it's not breaking any laws of physics like some of these other things are, so it's still technically plausible. Now, how am I supposed to determine which of these is the least logical? I mean, we haven't even brought up the fact that towers such as the Pursuit can go inside of each other in midair, or enemies can go inside of each other if they run through each other. Looks like the answer is a lot of things. You can't single out any one of these because all of them equally don't have a reasonable explanation you could give. Now, if you went into some quantum physics or something, I don't know anything about that, maybe you could explain 1 or 2 of these, but I'm telling you that there's most certainly zero logic in a lot of things that you probably just never even thought of. But this just goes to show that maybe not having logic is only going to make the game more fun. I mean, if there really was logic in all of these, then all of these wouldn't really exist, and we'd lose out on a lot of core mechanics of the game, even towers. Maybe it's best that there's not a lot of logic. Of course, we'd like to see a little bit more, but it's fine. And as always, thanks for watching.